everybody. It's I, Katie Morton.
And Jennifer Palmer.
Together we are divinely guided. We're both intuitives, energy healers, spiritual teachers.
And tonight we're doing something special. We wanted to do just a little chat with you guys about how to connect with your guides.
Yeah, and what it's like and all the different methods.
And why would you want to?
Yeah, ew.
Yeah.
Who the heck does that?
Yeah, we very much believe that it's important to have that connection and communication with your spirit guides and loved ones who've crossed over. It's a really valuable tool to help you navigate this crazy world.
Yeah, and my dog, just so you know, is running around snorting and making all kinds of noise as usual, so it's not always us.
Yeah. Only some of the snorts
Only
are us.
some of it. Yeah. So, well, it's interesting that I've had an interesting experience of late while I've been trying to connect with my guides, and I've been dealing with like a lot of interference, and our normal clearing protocols were not quite working the way they used to. And so Jen tuned in for me today, and our guides were talking about how some people, not everybody, but when they try to connect with their guides, they send out these, they call them filaments, and it's like threads that search for information. And so what was happening is, because we have a lot of protocols to create sacred space, and these include things like cutting cords and closing portals, but we didn't have filaments on the radar. And we've noticed when it comes to creating sacred space that those who would not want you to create sacred space, you know, there are some beings who would like to interfere with that sort of thing. They're always looking for these little tricks and loopholes. And so you always have to be updating, you know, your prayers or however it is that you create sacred space. So that is always the first thing we talk about when connecting with guides, is that you have to do it within sacred space. Just last week, I put a video on our website. So if you go to divinelyguided.tv, there's one that talks about how to create sacred space. But I would encourage you to always be challenging yourself to come up with ways that work really well for you, and updating those ways if they start to go sideways. But long story short, with the filaments, we've learned that we not only need to cut cords, but we have to trim the filaments. And to get guidance by, you know, there's different ways, you know, there's telepathy. You can call your guides in to be present with you. You don't have to be like I was doing, apparently reaching the filaments.
We were like, it's the spider web. You send out all your spidey senses. And what do you got for me?
Right. Yeah. And it worked until it didn't, you know.
So it looks like everybody's thinking this is not a normal live. We are going to be doing our normal lives where we ask specific questions for you guys, for your guides on Thursday. Tonight, this is really just about a chat where, you know, we'll answer questions for you regarding connecting and crazy experiences we've had, or maybe ones that you've had that you might have a specific question around. Yeah, this is a very specific one that we're doing tonight. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, topic based in terms of connecting with your guides. Yeah. Or with galactic beings or past loved ones. Yeah.
So what's your experience, Katie, with the types of personalities?
So I'll tell you about a really fun shopping trip I had this one time. This being who was this kind of like a high level, very serious being that I was sort of joking around with Jen. I told her about this. So actually, this is one of the things that I bought on this shopping trip. They had me buy sort of strange, I thought, clothing that's not my usual sort of teeny bopper style. It was things like this. And I remember I was looking at this one item and I heard this voice say, "It is regal." Like it wanted me to buy it. It was saying this item was regal. It wasn't even referring to this. It was a different item, but also regal. Anyway, so afterwards I was telling Jen the story and I was like, yeah, it was like Voltar the Galactic. And it turned out, I think his name really was Voltar. I was joking around. And it was a very serious personality and didn't necessarily appreciate that we were giggling about Voltar the Galactic's taste in clothing, which I did buy. So, you know, it's not horrible.
And then sometimes you have guides who are just like goofy and they show up in ballet slippers and start dancing around and acting like they're, I don't know,
And she's talking about a rotund middle-aged man, by the way. No offense, I'm sorry. Oh my God. In ballet slippers, dancing around.
It's a lot of fun.
In a tutu.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean? Just got her toy. It's
All
okay.
right. So we do have a couple questions here. Let's see. How do you call authentically to your guides?
Always in gratitude. Yeah. So here's the thing. What I think the guys really like it when because our purpose for connecting is to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I get into a state where I'm trying to connect too much for just, personal or kind of like pet, as humans of Earth, we all have our selfish, petty stuff that we want to connect about. And
our human needs.
Yeah. And so they will do that. But it's like you have to keep the balance of focus on, for us anyway, of being of service and also being really in gratitude. I've had some people who they want to learn how to connect and they have a lot of trouble because they might be looking for parking spaces or lottery numbers, as opposed to really connecting in with, on a higher reason and purpose for connecting, like their soul's mission. Mm-hmm. And so the guides will often not entertain that sort of the smaller things. And the other thing is I've seen people have trouble when they're demanding about it. They're like, give me the information. The guys are like, no. You have to be really in a high vibe state of love and peace and vibing on their level.
And neutral. When you're really too connected to the answer that you're hoping to get, you're not going to get great connection.
Yeah. Well, and I've also seen it happen if, let's say you have a question, you're very attached to the outcome. Usually when we're trying to get guidance as people, it's because we're attached to an outcome and we want a certain answer. And then it's really easy. People might get clear, direct guidance, but then they interpret it. They hear what they want to hear.
Yeah, that is a hard one.
Yeah.
We often, in our soul growth group, one of the things that we keep trying to really reinforce is when you're getting information, just stick to the data. Like, don't try to interpret any of it, at least up front. Just keep getting data. Well, what does this say? What was the exact image or what was the exact thing I heard? And just collect the data and then see how it unfolds and not to jump to conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So I've been in that bit of a state of like, I'll get information. Sometimes it takes months for it to play out, but it just can be a wait and see. Like don't go crazy.
Get attached.
Yeah. Don't get attached. Well, that's one thing I think people really need to learn about guidance in general is that we can't attach. Because I've seen people make the mistake of like, they get a piece of guidance, timelines change. There might be other people involved and other people who determine the outcome might change their mind or move off in a different direction. So it might appear as if the guidance was wrong, but it could be, well, that was correct at the time the guidance was received and now it's something else. So we always have to not attached to, we can get really inspiring prophecies and visions and things that seem like, oh my gosh, it's so real. I think it's going to happen. But if we attach to it as if it's an absolute, that can lead to disappointment. So if you remember that old game it was like a wooden board that could tilt and it was a marble and it was a maze. The guides have showed me that image when it comes to guidance and the purpose and direction of our lives. They need to sort of get us to certain places on the board, like through the maze of life. And so sometimes they might give us guidance that it's going to get us to like run over here because they need us to go over here before we can get this way. And so as the board is getting tilted and moved, the guidance needs to shift and change and we need to be able to flow.
Yeah. One of the things I've become very aware of is that, we'll get guidance and, immediately I'm like, okay, this means it's happening tomorrow. It's 100%. It's often not 100%. Sometimes they'll say it is going to happen if it's likely to happen, but it's to move you in that direction and they need you focusing a certain way. So that often happens too. Because honestly, it reminds me of when I moved Nourishing Journey 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Wow.
I was, making plans to move and, yeah, it happened a long time ago. I can't believe it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
However, I was like, yes, it is written in the stars. I am to expand Nourishing Journey and open up a cafe, and it's just going to be automatically successful because I'm following my mission. And ta-da, I'm working, I'm doing the work, but I didn't think it would be that difficult. And holy cow, it was the roughest couple of years after moving, just fitting into the space and expanding and growing and trying to make the ends meet and everything else, because I bit off a lot. And but I was doing what I knew I was supposed to do, so I felt confident in it. And luckily we're doing well, so it's okay. Thankfully, all is well. But that was really difficult because I was like, but I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. Well, yes, honey, you were doing what you were supposed to do. Good job. You're nailing it. And by the way, by stepping into what you're supposed to do, you now have a lot of things you have to conquer. Oh, if I would have known that, I may not have chosen to do it because it was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have.
Probably.
Yeah, like,
You might have only been maybe a 60% chance. I don't know, but maybe that's why they said, yes, now's the time. Go ahead, honey.
Right?
Instead of saying, but watch out.
I know.
Yeah. But no, it's all good. And I'm really glad that I did it. I am. But I think that's sometimes why they don't always give us the full story. They often will give us bits and pieces, and we're like, oh, come on, just tell us. Like, tell us what to do. And it's not that simple.
Yeah, life is not just a linear A to Z experience.
Oh, wow, it's not. All right, let's see what's next.
All right.
Rachel Rose Farber.
Where are we?
We're right here. Is that a question?
Okay.
Oh, okay. No, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just
Well, let's talk for a minute about mediumship in general, though.
Okay.
Because just so you guys know, we're just discussing how to connect with spirit guides. So, Rachel, we can probably give you some pointers on mediumship so that you can work on that. So, in terms of connecting with past loved ones, which I feel like Jenn is really good at.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not like a Long Island medium. But I do enjoy connecting with the loved ones, and it's a different vibration though. And I connect with the angelic and galactic realm a lot more easily than I do with loved ones, but they do come in sometimes. If they're really strong, I get it. I get a lot of information. But yeah, it is different.
Yeah.
It's a different frequency.
Yeah, it's a different vibration, and all past loved ones, like all beings, they have a different vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I think about it in terms of like the range of frequency. Like there's just ranges that I think I do better in than others. But
same.
Yeah. But it's fun. It is fun. I think part of the thing when you're getting information, especially from loved ones or maybe someone that you think you knew pretty well, you might doubt the information that you're getting. Mm-hmm. You might see an image of them or have a dream of them or something and think, oh, I'm just thinking about them.
Or signs. I think past loved ones tend to drop a lot of signs. It could be like a bird or pennies or physical signs. I think they will often, or feathers. They might show up in that way. So that's one way to connect.
Or song. Right. The song will play.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention about mediumship is the physical symptoms. I think that is often the premier sort of notification bell that you're being connected with by past loved ones. And
at least if you're clairsentient leaning, like if you tend to feel things.
Yeah, I guess I am.
Me too. So we have this one loved one who comes by, and we always, she likes to work with both of us, and we always end up with a massive headache when she's around.
Horrible headache.
And as soon as we get the message, as hard as it is to get with a headache, as soon as we get it, it immediately goes away.
Yeah. That's a rough one.
Yeah.
Although sometimes she'll hang in and just spend the day. I've had that happen.
Normally she goes for me, thank God.
Not always for me.
And then we have other people who come, and like my grandfather was a smoker, so it feels like you were smoking for 30, 40 years.
Yeah, and you can even sometimes taste the cigarettes. It's a little gross.
Yeah.
No offense.
So yeah, or you might smell a perfume. or a flower that they liked.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's different ways that they come in. I think a lot of times people make the mistake of confusing guidance only with clairaudience, and they get very attached to needing to hear messages and voices that way. But things can come in so many different ways, and it could just be this sort of like a thought or a hunch or a knowing that often things can come in that way, and it's just sort of a whisper fast sort of a thing. And unfortunately, people will often doubt that. Like you said, they'll just kind of think, oh, I don't think I'm connecting.
Yeah. And also, too, I think sometimes if you're too emotionally upset by their passing, it might be harder to connect as well. So
for sure.
That too.
Yeah. I think getting to a place of peace is definitely helpful.
Okay.
What else?
Someone said hello. No.
Yes, people are saying hello. I'm picking through. I'm trying to find some questions that are on topic and we're doing a Q&A about connecting with our guides.
Here's a good one from Doug.
Hello, Douglas Henniger. How are you doing this evening? Are you like 7-Eleven and you're open all the time for communication with entities/beings, or can you put up a do not disturb sign? Boundaries are very important, because when I was first learning to connect and I didn't really know, it's very novel at first, and you're just like, oh yeah, like anytime, sure, like this is wonderful. And then at some point you realize that's like a really bad policy.
Yeah. Although I will say sometimes, and this just happened to me the last couple of days actually, I have this one guide. The Pleiadians really like to tap. So
it's like twitching, like a muscle twitch, but it's like
sometimes
a tapping.
It's real gentle. Sometimes it's like, hello.
And some of them are like, ah.
I know. And they won't stop until you get it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when I first started diving into my spirituality, before I really became intuitive, I guess, I kept having this one eye twitch. And I remember looking in the mirror, and when I would look at it, it would just stop. And I was like, that's so weird. And I ended up reading this book about Pleiadians, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but she had talked about when she first had her awakening, she suddenly realized that the twitching was the Pleiadians. And so I was like, well, maybe that's what it is for me. So I started trying to connect to the Pleiadians, and I felt like they were like, yes, yay. They were twitching my eye. Then I started realizing that if I would just get the message, as soon as I got the message, the twitching would stop completely, and I could feel it pull away. And then of course, the more intuitive I got, the better that was. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, the twitch.
So how about Archangel Haniel?
Yes.
Yeah. So Jenn Archangel Haniel will come in and hit the nerve, like it's like Jenn's shoulder blade. Is it like right there, right about there? Anyway, right in the shoulder blade, and it's like, and she'll be like, oh, because it's very intense and really painful. And then when he would come in for me, it would be like, oh, hey, Haniel, sup? Like there was no like drama around it. And then this one day she was over there like in like childbirth agony, and I was just like, God, the dramatic throes. And so he came over and let me experience it, and I was like, oh, okay. Like she is not kidding.
Well, and just to be clear, Haniel, I mean, with a lot of the archangels, some people experience them more masculine, some more feminine. I have experienced Haniel as more feminine once or twice, but usually Haniel comes in more masculine for me.
Me too. Yeah.
And usually it's about soul mission. So when I'm working with somebody and it's a really important message about soul mission, that's kind of the tell. That's how I know that that's what that message is going to be about.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk for a minute. How do you set boundaries in terms of connecting with guides and entities? I mean, boundary number one is sacred space, right? So anytime anything just pops in and starts talking, I'll be like, hold up, and I create sacred space, because if I'm not supposed to be connecting with it, then it will not be allowed in my sacred space. So that's the first thing to know.
We're pretty specific about it too.
Yeah, we're very specific about it. So, and I'm going to say what we do, because I know I said it again. I'm going to repeat. Go to divinelyguided.tv. There's a video there about how to create sacred space. And we do get into specifics there, but just really briefly, we always say that we only want to connect with those who are polarized to the positive path of ascension in service to others, which is very important, honoring the God of all gods and the loved one. You want somebody who is in service to others as opposed to service to self. You don't want to connect with anything that's in service to itself because they can be manipulative and they can make a mess in your life. You don't want that. So, but they can be tricky.
And there's another reason for this too. There was one time we were doing a live, and I guess we didn't quite define our sacred space or something as tight as we usually like to or something. But there was this loved one that came in, and I was reading somebody else, and it was just this really odd message. And then I realized, and she hung around for a while.
Leave.
Yes, and she had quite the personality. It was a lot of fun, but it was blocking the other information from coming in. So we took a moment. We were like, all right, all of you loved ones out. No one allowed in but our guides. And then we didn't get loved ones coming in for a while.
Yeah, and then we had to sort of rearrange things to have our guides be bouncers, to sort of like usher in the loved ones who are irrelevant and then have them leave when they're done, so that it's not just some sort of weird free-for-all pile up
party up in here.
Well, it kind of is, but it's very exclusive. There's a red velvet rope. You can't, not anyone.
No crashers.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's basically it. You got to define your rules and then be strict about them, basically.
And just so you know, too, we also create sacred space before we go to sleep because we can get really messed with during sleep time, just so you know.
Yes.
Okay.
So we recommend that for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you connect with your guides when you are a claircognizant?
Very nice.
Yeah, that's a good question, Amy. So if anyone doesn't know, claircognizant is, so there's the different clairs. So clairsentient means you can feel things. Clairaudient means you can hear things. Claircognizant means you just know things. So oftentimes when I've noticed people who are claircognizant, it's not like there's some big process around it. And they're not usually, look, there's lots of different ways to connect. What I have seen typically, in general, it's very generalized, not for everybody who's claircognizant, but what I've seen a lot of times is they just know stuff and there's no huge process around it. It just filters in. They just have a knowing and they
don't know how they know, but they know.
So that is often the process, which is sort of a no process. However, I we're both clair. We have all the clairs. We're also claircognizant. And so sometimes there are times that, I think when we're trying to connect, we're not necessarily trying to exercise that skill when we're trying to connect. We're usually probably pulling from other skill sets when we're making an effort at it. That said, claircognizance is one of my most useful skills where I just know stuff. And there are times when my guides are like, no, that's not true. It's like this. And I'm like, sorry, I just know. And sometimes they don't want me to know certain things because it's like, soul wise, they need me. No, we need you to think this because we really need you to lead you along. And sometimes I'm just like, sorry, I'm kind of hard to fool sometimes. It's like a little inconvenient, I think, in terms of like the guide's POV. I've been right a few times when I didn't want to be right. And they were like, no, you're not right. And then it panned out and they're like, yeah, okay.
Well, the other thing too is sometimes they need us holding a space of possibility for something to happen. There are times when, maybe something only has like, let's say a 25% chance of occurring, but it is in the highest good for that to occur. And if we are in that 75% space of, nope, that's not going to happen, we are not adding the appropriate energy for that possibility. And a lot of times they want us to be in whatever's for the highest good, whether it's likely or not. They want us to be in that state of holding that space for that to happen. And, so that's always interesting. And, but I think, a lot of the times they start telling us like, well, it is like a 25% chance and you need to be in that space if at all possible.
Like to even achieve the 25%.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes what I've seen too that they've done is they'll say like, let's say you have an emotional attachment to an outcome and your happiness is somewhat wrapped up in it. And let's say it's just, we've had this happen before where it's really just not going to happen. But they need us to keep a certain vibe, or there would be like, let's say, years on end, like you opening Nourishing Journey. If you knew you've got 3 like hard years in front of you, you would have been dragging ass. So sometimes they're just like,
Put it mildly.
right? So sometimes they need just to keep our vibration going and for us to string along the event timeline and to keep our vibration at a certain place. Claircognizance can actually not be that helpful. Like you just don't want to know. And so that is sometimes the case with me with the claircognizance, where I'll know something and I just won't say it to you because I'm just like, but you know, I mean, I've told you now because it happened and I was just like, yeah, well.
Fun times.
Yeah, because I wanted to go back and find out, but why did you tell us this? And they were like, well, there's no point in raining on everybody's parade.
All right. How do you connect with your guides? Okay, we did that one.
My guide showed me stories and answers in the clouds. Is that weird? Does that happen to anyone? I think that's awesome. And I don't think it's weird. And I think it does happen to a lot of people. Like I'm in a lot of spiritual groups on Facebook, and a lot of people are always posting pictures of the clouds because they'll be like, you know, amazing, like an angelic, like a cloud that looks like an angel, or there'll be certain, I feel, messages in the clouds.
Yeah, I was down in Mexico. Gosh.
Oh yeah.
Like almost, I guess it was like 4.5 years ago. And yeah, it was right before I moved Nourishing Journey. I was in a really good place before the difficulties. And yeah, so I was in Mexico and I was just sitting on the beach and I heard very clearly, everything was really clear in Mexico. And I heard very clearly, look up at the sky. And I look up and there was this beautiful rainbow cloud. You know, I don't know if you guys have actually seen it. I didn't even think that was a real thing until I saw it with my own eyes. Rainbow cloud. And it was in the shape of an angel, like it was flying off in the sky. It was the coolest thing. And I took a picture, but I just felt so connected to all of that. And I was like, oh, great things are coming. I'm so on my path. It's such a great time to be on my mission.
Aw,
and then
so nice.
I was not prepared for the next few years.
Yeah.
But it's, but I will say, you know, a lot of times when we step into our mission, we do have a lot of things to heal. We're not just here to say, okay, I'm doing my mission and then this is the outcome, guys. We are here to work through things, and we're in a process and we are ever unfolding, and that process is so important. And I had a lot of things to go through to get to where I am, and I really feel like I'm on the other side of it, but it wasn't easy. But no one said it was going to be easy. I just assumed that.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. I put out a course in 2013, a book in 2015, and both times I was like, I've arrived, I did it. And both times it was like crickets. And I was like, I went through that for what? But it was, you know, the course is amazing. The book's amazing. They still serve me in so many ways. The wisdom is amazing. So it's like, and I had to go through what I went through. I couldn't just have success handed to me. And now we were told today, we're at the top of the roller coaster before it gets good.
Oh, gosh.
So hooray.
I do feel a shift in the energies, though. I do feel like it's getting really good.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Okay.
Carrie Cusack.
Yeah. So, hey, Carrie, she says, when I get messages for people, it can be a clear message, but sometimes they will say it doesn't mean anything to them. How do I know who that message is for when I'm reading for them? I'm having a hard time with singling out one spirit at times when I have numerous ones coming through at a time.
Girl, I
remember
hear you.
that. I used to have that. I mean, we still sometimes will have that.
Yeah, with loved ones especially.
Yeah, they're the worst, because here's the thing that I've noticed about spirits is that there's different dimensions. So like we're in a dimension, we're in the third dimension, 3D, hello, hi, poke. In the same, essentially physical locations, there's multiple dimensions. And within this physical location, there are multiple different dimensional beings. And so you could have two beings in the same physical place who I can see both of them and I know they can't see each other. So sometimes when they're crowding you, they don't even realize that there's a crowd around you. So I used to get like really annoyed. Like, what are you like pushing and shoving each other? And it's like, no, they don't know that they're competing for space or that there's even other people around. I've seen hilarious stuff. Anyway.
It really helps though when you ask your guides to be the bouncers and to help bring in who's next and who needs to communicate, or to try to narrow it down a little bit. But sometimes there might be at least a couple that come in at once. Even when that happens, I've noticed sometimes that's still, but I think it's because they have a message together, and their presence together is important for whatever reason. So that does happen sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's, with practice, it gets easier for sure. And trying to really just hone in on, basically what do you want to get and for whom, and being pretty diligent about keeping the focus on that. The thing about people not, like they're saying like, oh, I don't think that's for me. I don't get it. That can happen sometimes when it is absolutely for them. And they just are like, I don't know what that is, but it can happen.
And I've had them actually go home and like a day or two later, they'll email me and say, oh my gosh, I figured out what that was. And it was for them, and they finally figured it out. Also too, though, I will say that because interference can happen, and it may not be a loved one or a guide for that person, it may be interference. And so double checking your sacred space is really important. When stuff like that happens, I often will recreate sacred space just to be sure that it wasn't somehow interfered with. And then I'll ask the question again, and I'll try to see what else I get. And usually, though, I get the same answer and the same guidance, whatever it was. So, yeah, just trust. For example, one time I was working on this lady, and she was older and really, and I was doing some scanning. It's like, I'm really feeling a lot going on in this. I think it was her left knee or something. I'm feeling a lot going on here, and there's a lot of healing I need to do here. And she was like, oh, I don't know, whatever. But it doesn't make sense to me, but okay. But, so I worked on her knee and everything else and put it in her report. I did a report, about everything I found. And she gets home that night and she tells somebody, and they're like, Mom, don't you remember? Just like 2 months ago, you couldn't even walk up the stairs because your knee. And she was like, oh yeah, that's right. I was like, it doesn't lie. Energy doesn't lie. So, you gotta, as long as you're in sacred space and you're getting high quality and appropriate information, it's not lying to you. It is giving you the actual information that you need to hear for that person at that time. That's for the highest good. So,
yeah. Well, and I will say this, oftentimes guidance can trigger people's egos, and they can go into resistance about it. And it could be something that they don't want to hear. I had a reading one time for somebody where they really just wanted me to tell them what they wanted to hear. They had an attachment to a business that they needed to get out of, and they didn't want to know that. But they were coming to me because their business wasn't doing well. And so really what they wanted me to say was, stick to it, it'll turn around. But that wasn't the guidance, because they weren't in the right business. And so she was very angry with me. She asked for her money back. Like it was like a big to do, but guidance wasn't wrong. It just wasn't what she wanted to hear. Yeah. So anyway, that can happen. And we just have to not get attached to needing people to respond to us a certain way either. I mean, I don't like upsetting people. She asked a question.
Well, and the other side of this too is when you're the one who's trying to receive guidance. And, because we do that too sometimes. I'm like, Katie, what can you get about this? Because maybe I'm too connected into it and I can't get neutral enough or whatever. But, you always need to take things with discernment, always, because nobody, even your own guides, can really tell you what to do. There's suggestions, there's guidance, it's coaching, it's trying to help you down a path. But in the end, it's always a decision that you need to make. It's always something that you need to feel good about, whatever that is. And, you can't really, if you're living mostly in ego, which most people are, if you hear something that offends your ego or torques your ego or triggers you in some way, you're going to completely reject it. And there's no way you're going to follow it, even if it is really the right thing to do. But yet, if you're getting more and more curious and you become the observer and you're getting more connected to that soul space instead of the egoic space, you'll be open and flexible and workable. And you still need to work through some of that egoic stuff. And so the guides are going to try to help you navigate that. And that's just really important. It's just such an important part about all of this. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nope.
Right. What's next?
Let's see. Okay, so just so y'all know, if there's anyone who jumped on like halfway, this is a special Q&A about how to connect with your spirit guides. So if you have any questions about connecting to spirit guides, meditation maybe, or loved ones, or galactic beings, angels, things like that, that's what we're talking about tonight. So Douglas Henniger asks, can you 100% tell the difference between a good entity and a not so good entity? Do the not so good entities try to trick you?
Mm-hmm.
So
great question.
Yeah, so entities are like people. There's all different kinds. There's some negative entities that are just like not that smart, and they try to trick you, and you're just like, yeah, it's whatever. So obvious. There are others that are very, very skilled. Like they might have a very high vibration and they feel very good and they say all the right things. Those are the worst because I've seen them earn people's trust. And then they can, once they get a foothold and that person trusts them, it's very hard to kind of like get rid of them because the person's unwilling to let them go. And then they can sort of run that person's life and run them into the ground if they're not careful. So yeah, entities, they run the gamut. Some of them just, their energy feels god awful and they're basically just trying to energetically attack you and screw up your energy field. Those I can tell.
Yeah.
So yeah, they come in all shapes, sizes, and flavors, basically, from like annoying little gnats to big baddies.
Well, it's funny because experiencing that, I look at things as just an opportunity to learn more. When I first started going down this road and this path, so many people told me, oh, well, the lower the vibration you are, the more you're dark. If it's a dark kind of being, then they're low vibration. But only high vibrational beings can be of light. So when they would create their sacred space, they're like, only beings of light can come in. And so, I adopted that in the beginning and realized very quickly that
doesn't work.
That doesn't quite work because I was experiencing what seemed like very high vibe beings that really did not have my best interest at heart, trying to be in my space and mess around and do things. And luckily I caught on really quickly, but that's how I learned that there were high vibrational and low vibrational on either end of the spectrum, light or dark, positive or negative, whatever that is. And that's when, I started really downloading a lot of information and understanding more about the ascension process from my guides. And then later came across the law of one, which corroborated a lot of that information and added in and filled in some gaps along the way too. And it was just such a great learning experience, and a lot of times when I tell people that, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And it really resolves a lot of their problems when they realize that, you can have a very high vibe being that's not there for your highest good.
Yep.
It's tricky.
I'm sorry that wasn't a neater answer. It is tricky. So, but it is what it is.
But that's another reason why, we don't trust anything 100%. Period. We just don't. Although that said, there are certain guides that we call in that I'd say it's very close, but we always leave room for, it could be tricky, maybe this is a guide pretending to, or this is a false guide pretending to be one of our real guides and things like that. So we're really careful about it.
Yeah. And so we'll double check if I get something that I'm like, this is suspect, I'll, run it by Jen. We'll run our stuff by each other. We'll also, and a lot of times what it comes down to, like if they say, okay, you need to do this, you need to make a decision. Here's what we're telling you to do. Sometimes we'll just say, well, let's just let this shake out for a few days. will very rarely just like cut the cord, like do the thing, sell the card, jump in the lake. Like we'll like be like, okay, well, let's just give it a few days, and then we'll check and we'll double check and we'll talk to different guides, and yeah. So you run it up the flagpole and test it, different ways before you act.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see what else we got. Della. She has a question about ghosts/spirits. I've been told that if you see them, do not interact with them, do not talk to them. I personally do not see, but wondered why about the interacting.
Well, here's what I think. There's a difference between past loved ones who've crossed over and those who have not crossed over for healing yet. I think, there's multiple reasons, and they call them lost souls, or they just kind of stay behind. They don't go into the light or whatever that is, that tunnel that they walk into to receive healing in the heavenly realm. And so what I would say about this, I don't know that I've ever heard it put like that, but if there is a loved one who's hanging around who is clearly not healed in a healed state, I usually just try to encourage them to cross over. I mean, I will talk to them and I will try to encourage them to cross over. If they won't, and I offer healing. If they won't, then I ask them to leave. I don't allow them to stay. But most of them willingly receive the healing. I think they want it. And so I don't know. And then they cross over. I see them leave. But the ones who've already crossed over and received healing, when I see images of them, or it's pretty great, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely converse.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of them are quite charming.
Yeah. I remember one time, this is just a funny ghost story. I was in Ohio for a wedding, and the wedding was at a church that had a huge. And it was an afternoon wedding, and we hotel before dinner, and I was exhausted. It was like our stream is having problems.
We're having connection issues. Okay.
Resume. Okay. Anyway, hope you can still hear us. I was exhausted, and I should have known, I should have known better. I should have known, oh, this is spiritual. I need to do a clearing. But I laid down in the bed in the hotel room and immediately fell asleep. And I had these visions of these faces like coming into my field, like all different directions. Hello? Can she hear us? I don't know. Can she hear us? Hello? And I woke up and I was like, what was that? That was a weird dream. Yeah. Still didn't get it. I immediately fell right back to sleep. And then they all came back. They're like, hello. I don't think she hears us. Hello? And I woke up and I was like, Archangel Michael, how many spirits are with me? And he said, hundreds. Oh my God. And I was like, okay. So I did some clearing work, did what I had to do and helped them heal. I, brought in healing for all of them who wanted it, asked them to cross over. And then I went back to sleep and I was fine. Like nothing else happened, but it was just very interesting. Yeah. But anyway, all to come back and say, I don't think I would say, don't talk to them. I would offer them healing or, kind of say heal or leave.
Yeah, basically. Or if you're not comfortable doing the healing, you might call in some angels for them. Yeah. Let's see. Sharon McNichol said, after my dad passed, I was sitting outside thinking about my dad, and I watched a white cloud develop. It then came in and circled me. That is the most peaceful I've ever felt. I wondered if that was my dad's hug. That's really nice. I'm going to say you should probably just decide that it was, because it feels really good. Heck yes, girl. Susan Hobbs says that when she did an Akashic Records thing a few years ago, she got a message about the Pleiadians. Very cool.
Faye Robbins.
Yeah, Faye Robbins says, when my dad passed, he touched my face and woke me. That is interesting. Susan Hobbs asks, Pleiadians, how do you know if this is your origin? That's a really good question.
Like us as humans, if that's our origin. I'm going to assume that's what she meant.
I think she means like somebody who's a Pleiadian starseed. Like, how do you know, right?
There's a resonance. You know, I was working with Pleiadians before I even knew it. And I think most of my guides are Pleiadian. And I've also met people who I think are Arcturian starseeds, and most of their guides tend to be Arcturian.
Yeah, the energy feels different. I don't know how to explain it, really.
Yeah, it's a resonance. And there's an alignment with what they bring and the presentation of their information. And you'll read something that resonates or connect with them, and it resonates in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean there isn't like cross appreciation. Because
Yes,
I
that's
love
true.
the Arcturians, and I've started connecting with them more and even resonating with them more, like kind of like connecting more with their messaging and whatnot. So it's like there's definitely cross pollination there. And there's definitely a lot of people who are Pleiadians who are friends with people who are Arcturians. So it's not like they don't mix. They do mix really well. And not to say that those are the only two types of like people are running around here, but I think they're like most of what I know, I think. But anyway, yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good stuff. But yeah, it's like a vibe. For me, it's just like a certain vibration. And yeah, you'll feel drawn to it. A lot of people know what their lineage is via claircognizance. Like they just know it. I think that's how that often happens. Other people have had readings. Like I think there's some people who do readings like that. Like that's their specialty, is to say like, what is your starseed origin type of a thing. Obviously you got to get somebody who's good and that you trust. But most star seeds, so what that means is people who they've lived in different star systems, they came down here usually to help with the ascension, so they're helping to spread the good word about what the heck are we doing on Earth right now, basically. But most of those people have had multiple lifetimes in many different dimensions. So even somebody who could say, well, they're of Pleiadian origins, it's like, well, maybe they also had a lifetime as a cat being. They could have had a lifetime as part of like the Orion Council of Light. They could have had, like many different lifetimes as different beings. So even somebody who's a quote Pleiadian could have backgrounds that's really varied. So there's also that.
Yeah.
So it might have just been like the most recent lifetime or incarnation. When if somebody says they're Pleiadian, they could have a lot of different backgrounds. So
yep.
Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Are there any food or drinks your guides have said to stay away from because it dampens their connection? That depends on both the individual and it depends on the stage. So there was a time in my stage of developing intuition where my guides were very particular. Like I needed to drink a ton of water. They were like quite fussy about things. And then at some point, it's just sort of like, it really doesn't matter. I always encourage people to stay away from alcohol for two reasons. One is that over time, it can lower your vibration, which is a really bad idea, because then, the other thing is a lot of times negative entities can be attracted to the buzz, and or just like a mob of past loved ones who maybe died from addiction issues and they want to get a contact high. So you could wind up with a lot of like unwanted spiritual activity. Same with smoking marijuana, any kind of substances that alter your state of consciousness, I think can be somewhat problematic. That said, there was a time, I don't really drink anymore. I haven't had a drink in a long time, but there was a time, not that long, maybe like a year or two ago, when I had a drink and I was sort of connecting with him about it. And it's like, look, everything's an illusion, and your consciousness is not part of your physical body, is what they're explaining to me. So it's like I could connect very clearly with them. It wasn't dampening my connection. It's all an illusion. It's like the body and the alcohol and all this stuff. So it's like, don't get too attached to anything. But my recommendations are don't. And in terms of that stuff, I think it's not helpful.
Well, and also too, I mean, I've definitely met people who are like, only eat vegan and only do this and only do that, you know, so that you have such high vibe. And high vibe is important, but high vibe is also what you make it. They've shown us how you can pray over food. And, you know, I am very into eating very healthfully, and I like to feel good in this body. And, but I'm also not vegan. And I've wondered about that. We're not vegan. We've wondered about that just because sometimes, you know, maybe if you're of the mindset that eating meat will lower your vibration, then it probably will. I tend to need meat so that I feel better. My body needs it. And not every person's the same. Mm-hmm. So we are always like, you eat what makes you feel good. Eat what makes you feel high vibe. And I wouldn't eat like fast food on an ongoing basis. I wouldn't do that because for me, that makes my body feel awful.
And there's a lot of chemicals and things in it that are probably trying to muck up the works, right?
Yeah. So think about it more, not what we all should do. Think about it more individually. What makes you feel optimal so that you can connect, so that you can feel good, so that you won't be uncomfortable, so that you won't get distracted by how your stomach's hurting or you feel bloated or whatever, or you know, you feel numb or dulled or whatever it is. And
I'm going to add a caveat to my, you know, moralistic proselytizing. I don't know how to say the word about like the drinking. So like we are interested in reading the books, the Seth material, which is channeled material, very excellent channelings, and that woman drank and smoked through all the channelings. So take everything I said with a grain of salt, because she was an excellent trance channel. Mm-hmm. So you got to do what works.
Yeah. But you know, the thing is too, and when you're talking about setting the right tone for the connection that you have, if that is important to you, then I probably wouldn't do that. If that is what is important to you and what you're trying to set forth in that connection, I don't know.
Yeah. And I will say I have seen, I'm definitely not going to name names with this one, but I've seen somebody who claims to channel a certain group. I'm not going to say the group because I don't want to identify them, but they use drugs to do so. And it's really obvious to me in a lot of this stuff that they channel is they're being interfered with. There's like a negative entity that's hooked in. And so they have a lot of information that sounds great, but it's definitely like polluted. There's threads in there that I can see that is a negative entity. So anytime somebody's using, what they're doing is they're using, I know this was about eating and drinking and not necessarily about drugs, but this person is using psychedelics to basically burst through the veil. And that's not really, I don't recommend that as the way to do it, because, you know, your mind, body, spirit, if you don't get there via natural means of meditation and self-development, it's a little risky. You don't know what you're going to get.
Or through really, like shamans do it.
Right.
Kind of program. It's different than just saying, hey, I want to break through and boom, help me. Get me on some mushrooms or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad for everybody either, because I've heard other people talk about it and they've had great experiences.
Right. And psychedelics can be very healing, and ayahuasca ceremonies can be amazing, positive experiences. So again, there's no absolutes.
Yeah, just don't do something that feels out of alignment for you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting. Faye Robbins asked, do aliens put implants in us to help with psychic abilities? That's such a good question because, look, our experience with implants has mostly been negative, and we try to remove them from people. That said, I did just read something from Dolores Cannon that she had written, obviously a long time ago, but she said implants tend to be good and they tend to help people connect. I was shocked to read that because that has not been our experience. So,
but it could just be that the ones who come to us with implants are coming to us because we know how to remove them.
And they need healing. So that could be it too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's a choose your own adventure with that one.
Well, I know somebody who told me recently, maybe, I don't know, in the last year, that they had been having experiences at night where they felt like they had been taken, and and it was
like abducted by aliens.
Abducted by really negative beings, and I don't want to say it because it just brings in bad energy, but and as he was telling me this, I started feeling the energy, and there was some sort of an implant that, as he was speaking it was like a booby trap. Where the energy then would start attacking me. And it wasn't a being. The being wasn't there. It was an implant. And so I immediately started removing it. And it really helped him to remove it. So anyway, these things are so strange.
It's pretty weird.
It is. But yeah, I wouldn't assume that they're, I guess, good or bad. It could be either.
I guess. Yeah. Let's go with that. What else we got? Let's see. So Shawnee Nicole Drake asked, where can I find angelic meditation besides on YouTube? So I think you're a member of our soul growth group. And if you go to divinelyguided.tv and you log in, if you go on the top menu, there's the thing that says Soul Growth Group, and there's a little drop down. You, specifically Shawnee Nicole Drake, are going to go there. You're going to hit log in. And then you're going to go to find the page. There's a page in this Soul Growth Group situation, I think in the drop down, that might say meditations for members. The situation there on Divinely Guided. There's some angelic meditations. So you specifically are in luck. The rest of you, I don't know. You're going to have to join Soul Growth Group to get the angelic meditations.
Yeah, we were planning to put more up there as well.
Yeah. So there you go. That is quite a specific question with a very specific answer just for you. All right. Douglas asked, why does Katie close her eyes when she's looking for info? Because it helps me to shut out my senses, the 3D physical senses. Because so the third eye, the pineal gland, which is like your internal way of seeing, I can see via my third eye better with my eyes closed. Like if I'm going to see images or see guides, it's just easier for me to see them that way than if my visual eyes are competing with sensory information. I can still do it. There's like a movie screen where I can have my eyes open right now and a guide could, thank you, do a little dance. They're doing it. Like I could watch them, but it's just much easier for me to just have one screen to watch at a time. It's just a sensory input thing where it's like easier for me to listen and to see and hear and know if I don't have other stuff to look at. And why don't you close your eyes?
Actually, when I'm in healing, I do. But usually for some reason, if I'm giving guidance, like if someone's sitting across from the table for me, or if I'm on live or something, I don't know why, but I tend to look off down to the left.
I've noticed that you kind of go.
Yeah. And but that's just how
I think the camera's reversed, so maybe it's
I
don't know, but whatever.
This is my left.
Yeah.
So I look off to my left, and and then the information starts flowing in. So
yeah, well, and it's interesting when I'm in a one-on-one guided session with somebody. A lot of times, well, it's kind of how I do here. I'll close my eyes, and when it starts flowing, I will often open my eyes and then start talking, because it's like I've got the link. The flows in, then I can open my eyes and like spit it out. So it's really just sort of a tuning in thing for me, a way of concentrating.
I think that was the last question.
And it's 8:02. Perfect timing, everybody.
You guys had specific questions that you wanted answers for you from your guides. We're doing that on Thursday, so catch us in a couple days.
Yeah, come back
'Cause we'll be
Thursday, and we will see you in a couple days. In the meantime, go to divinelyguided.tv, check out some videos, and join our soul growth group.
Yeah, and if there's ever anything that you guys want us to discuss, get on to Divinely Guided Facebook and just send us a message or post to us or something, and we'll.
Yeah, maybe we'll do another chit chat if you're
Yeah.
interested in us discussing different spiritual topics on special divinely guided lives, such as this one.
Yeah, these are fun.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
everybody, have a good one.
Thank you. I get to end the stream this time.
Hooray!